Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always my co-host Nick Filato. Tonight we're here to vent a little bit, recap a really pitiful, disgusting loss by the New York Giants, the New York Jets. One of the worst losses I've seen. I said collapse-wise, it was probably the worst I've seen since the Sean Jackson game, Matt Dodge infamous game. Now, different circumstances, of course, end of the season, higher scoring game. That was, and the Giants were playing for the division. This is obviously they weren't playing for anything too real. I mean, they were playing to get back into the wild card mix, if you want to call it that, with this team that they have out there. But it's just the way that they went about this loss, Nick, that was just really unbelievable, truly. Since obviously the game's ended, we've seen what we've seen. You posted something about Dexter Lawrence getting held on one of the plays that side of the game, which was true. I looked at it. I mean, this type of stuff happens. Then obviously those who haven't seen it yet, but are probably going to learn this, but I think most of you have, is that the NFL messed up too because they weren't supposed to let the Jets snap the ball to where they could spike, or weren't supposed to let the Jets center snap the ball without the official touching it to set it before the last spike that was within a few seconds before the game tying field goal at the end of regulation. So some mess ups on the NFL's part, but in the end, like this is just like I said after the game, Nick, and I'll start here and I'll turn this over to you, but this just felt very Joe Judgian to me, this whole game, everything about it. The last 2 weeks, you texted me last week, like, oh my God, we're not going to collapse. This would be the biggest collapse ever in that Washington game after they went up 14-0, 14-7, game ended 14-7. I mean, this was that exact replica of a game, essentially. Near collapse. This time it actually did collapse. The Giants didn't even run an offense for most of this game. This is going to be back to just, it's just amazing. Like, it's impossible for me to watch this team right now, Nick, and think that they're anywhere close to competing for a Super Bowl. I'll start by saying that because it's just pathetic that they've gotten to this point. And I don't want to hear injuries as an excuse anymore because this O-line was more than competent today. Obviously, it's like, look, you don't want to have DeVito do some things out there. I get it, but this guy can run RPO, right? You can just have him run RPO. He's a college coach. He played at Illinois. He knows RPO. Run some fucking RPO so you get an advantage in the box on a couple plays, and he could rip a slant occasionally, or he could pull it and run it. Like, and I know that's what they did on the touchdown. So great. They did it once, but it just like throw the ball occasionally, a slant here, a slant there. It just doesn't have to be like that. And, you know, we can get into the decision, some of the decisions, Nick. I have the stat up here from our buddy Doug Analytics. You know, people can make of it what they want. Let me see what it was. Yeah. The Giants offense actually, against all, now I lost my like things. Never mind. But the Giants had converted the third most 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 conversions in the NFL, Nick, prior to this game, 69%. Obviously, on that 4th and 1, they decided to go for the field goal, despite Graham Gano clearly not at his best. Like, I think it's obvious that Gano, for whatever reason, missed a chip shot last week with Tyrod, missed another field goal earlier today, and then they put him out there again. And so, like, sometimes situationally that was confusing. I really, though, you know, it's all over the place, Nick. I'll let you go here, and we can try to spitball off of each other.
Yeah, Graham Gano, he's been missing more kicks than we're used to seeing recently, and he's got a knee injury, and he said, it's nothing to do with the knee injury, but look, man, this is one of the better kickers of our generation. He's out there missing these kicks, but if we're just going to focus on that Brian Daboll, man, that decision, all you got to do is pick up 1 yard. I get that the Giants were stuffed on the previous 2 runs after Saquon picked up 6 yards, and it looked like he kind of went down after picking up 6 yards and left a little bit of meat on the bone. Yeah. And Brian Daboll, look, he's been uber conservative. A lot of it has to do with the personnel. I think Brian Daboll is the type of coach who doesn't necessarily have a true philosophy. He's going to stick to the context of the game. And in part, sometimes I appreciate that. But in this case, man, look, you had a 97, according to ESPN Analytics, you had a 97.8% chance to win this football game after Kayvon Thibodeaux sacked Zach Wilson on 4th and 10. Great play by Kayvon Thibodeaux. We'll get into him a little bit later. And somehow you just fall apart. And then the defense that was so good earlier in the game, throughout the entire game, gave up 2 consecutive 29-yard completions to the New York Jets, putting them in field goal range. And one thing I'll say this, I'm not entirely sure, so I could be wrong here, but I've heard that all you have to do is touch the football in those quick situations with the ref. I heard that. I don't know
think the ref touched the ball.
He does. He runs over and he just taps it, okay. But he didn't set it. The center set it. Now that's where I'm like, I'm not really 100% sure about this situation. I just wanted to kind of put that out there. But man, this was one of the more Joe Judge type of games we've seen. The Giants finished with, I think, a net of -9 passing yards because they were sacked like 4 times on 14 passing attempts, -9. That's the worst since the Jake Fromm game with the New York Giants. And before that, in the entire NFL, not just the New York Giants history, it's like predates 2010. So why the hell are the Giants just this inept offense in recent memory? And look, man, I get the uber conservative approach to an extent, but why do you even have this kid on your roster if you're not going to trust him to throw the football at all in any situation? You become so one-dimensional. You have to go out and pick somebody else up if you're not going to trust the kid to throw the ball even once, man, and just back the Giants into a corner. And like everything else in 2023, Dan, everything just fell to shit because that's Murphy's Law in this team. Everything falls to shit for this team.
Yeah. I guess the thought might be, Nick, just to play devil's advocate, is like if they felt comfortable with him having a game plan. Because look, it's very, I don't know what's going to happen this week at quarterback for the Giants next game, but it's probably going to be DeVito, right? Like Tyrod Taylor, to me, feels like that injury is probably going to be bad. He was rushed to the hospital. He's still in the hospital. Giants are checking on him. Daniel Jones, they said week 10, like that was the optimistic report, which still leaves us in week 9 at minimum next week. You can't really pick anyone up. Like nobody knows this system, right? Like, I guess they might have to try to sign Davis Webb, bring him back out of coaching.
Matt Barkley.
Matt Barkley. I mean, that's pathetic. I'd rather see DeVito than Barkley. None of it. Like, let DeVito play. Like, maybe the hope is just, Nick, from what to answer your question, they didn't feel comfortable because he didn't take any reps with the team. Like, this is just like the wishful way to look at it. The reality, though, is this is how Daboll's coaching. Like, there were signs of this even last season, to be honest. And this season, there's been a lot of signs of it. And it's okay. Like, I get it. Like, he just wants to win these games. And in his mind, he's like, I'd rather not F this up with DeVito getting a pass tipped or him saying it's hanging in the pocket, staying on a read, sack fumble, something like that, like to lose me this game. So, like, I get that. But when it comes to that 4th and 1 situation inside the Jets territory, when your kicker already has missed a field goal this game, missed a chip shot for him, what was it, 30-something yards last week against Washington, you know something's up with him mentally, probably. That's how it goes with kickers. They're just mental cases, in my opinion. Most of them just go through these weird stretches of bad kicking, and then they go to a new team, and they're back, and then they're bad again, and they're back. It's like a very mental thing, kicking a football. But at that stage, like your team is 16 of 19 going into that play, Nick. Like, and again, shout out Doug Analytics. 16 of 19 on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1s. The 3rd best in the NFL. Trust them. Let them try to win you this game. That's how I look at it this time. And look, they didn't do that. They missed the field goal. They allowed the Jets. All the shit that happened after that still happened. And that's why, the holding on Dexter Lawrence, it is what it is. Like it's a long game, and the Giants could have easily tried to win this game, but they didn't. And this is kind of the point that Nick and I have discussed over the years with Judge and, any coach that's been here. It's like, when you do this, your margin for error is so slim to win a football game. When you're coaching not to lose, yes, sometimes it works and you win. This almost worked. It almost fucking worked. But maybe, just maybe, if there were some spots where they didn't coach so unaggressively in this game, it wouldn't have mattered at the end. The other team wouldn't have had a chance to tie it up and then win it in overtime. And that's the whole point behind the idea of when people talk about coaching not to lose coaching not to lose versus coaching to win a football game. And so, Daboll has been doing this for basically all season. Again, you can blame it on the personnel, you can blame it on whatever. It is what it is for me, Nick. But the fact of the matter is, at this point, there's no objective way for you or me to sit here and say Brian Daboll is having a good season as a coach.
Of course.
He's having a very bad, exactly. And he's having a very bad season as a coach. He coached this game horrifically. The Buffalo game, I think you can argue he coached that poorly too. You can blame it on Tyrod at the end, but you're a head coach. And as people have said, you still have to be in control of things and make sure everyone's on the same page. And it's just that wasn't the only decision in that game that was questionable. And, he hasn't really coached well at any point. Arizona game, I thought was poor coaching in the first half. Didn't need to get yourself to that point. And just these guys are more unprepared, more missed tackles, more penalties, except for this game. It's just he's not doing a good job. Now, as far as where I see him moving forward, Nick, I'm still willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. And I'll be honest with everybody here as to why. Some people are not going to like this, Nick. I need to see him with a good offensive line. I'm going to say this, with a quarterback playing better football than Daniel Jones has played at any point with Daboll, and that includes last year. Yes, Daniel Jones had a nice EPA last year. A lot of that was just scrambles. His EPA was weighted heavily toward the scramble runs. That shit wasn't working this year. They cut it off. Then you talk about a little bit of the passing he did down the stretch of last year. I get it. It was okay. There were some good moments. It was mostly just quick game and shit that defense is adjusted to this year. I need to see him with somebody who can stretch this freaking field consistently at that position before I give up on him. because I've seen him do it with Josh Allen, and I saw what he did last year with Daniel Jones, which I feel like was a miracle. It was miracle work. The guy was bottom 3 across the board in every statistic until Brian Daboll got him. The raw statistics, the EPA, the advanced stuff, the film was awful. And yeah, there was Jason Garrett, there was bad O-line, there was all the issues too. But he made him look like a top 10 quarterback last year. So to me, that weighs heavily on my mind because all I really care about in the end, Nick, is getting quarterback right, having good quarterback play consistently, having a passing game consistently, because that's the only way this team ever gets good again. We could have won this game. It wouldn't have mattered. This team has no Super Bowl aspirations this year and won't have Super Bowl aspirations again until they get consistency with the passing game. That's where it all starts. And you could say you can't think about quarterback right now as we get moving toward the offseason because you got to get the O-line. No. If you have a chance at that position, you just get it. You just keep swinging and you get it. The O-line, I hate to say it, it does come second. Yes, you have no chance if your O-line sucks and your QB is good, but you can figure the O-line out much easier than you can figure out the quarterback. The Giants O-line has looked pretty competent the last couple weeks. You know what didn't look competent today, Nick? The quarterback position. Tyrod, when he was in the game, was playing poorly. Obviously, the DeVito was, they felt so scared of DeVito, they couldn't even let him move the ball or try to move the ball through the air. You can't win football games like this consistently. It's back to the Joe Judge shit of, let's make a mountain. What is it called? A mountain out of a mole because they beat frickin' Seattle, a stupid shit win against a quarterback who was declining, and then they beat Brandon Allen and a few other teams. Joe Judge is the guy. No, I don't want that type of football, Nick. I want good football. There's no way to get back to this team being good consistently unless they get the passing game down somehow, some way. You could say, and I'm fine with this, if they improve the O-line, they get more weapons, Jones can be that guy. Fine. I'm still open to the idea. I don't think he's had a fair shake this year. I want to make that clear. But no matter what, the focus needs to be on how do we consistently move the ball through the air? Because there's no way they're going anywhere consistently without that. And that's the rant for now.
No, I mean, you're not wrong. I don't know how you do. You can't do that mid-season. You would hope
this year it's out of the picture.
It's completely wasted. It's dead at this point, man. This was just this game in general was so inefficient. There was a point in this game at halftime where no one picked up a third down. It took until like midway through the third quarter before somebody picked up a third down. And the Jets, they just wanted the Giants to win this football game with the stupid Jermaine Johnson penalty that extended a drive. And then there was another penalty that the Jets committed. I'm like, oh my God, man, you guys really just want the New York Giants to win this game. And then the New York Giants were in position to win the game. And what did they do? They didn't win it. They gave it right back to the New York Jets, man. So freaking frustrating top to bottom. It just seems like, Dan, just macro view, every decision that this front office, this isn't just Brian Daboll, this is everybody, every decision that they made, every calculated risk that they took blew up in their face. And it seems to be haunting them. We saw it again today, just like we saw in week 4 against Seattle. You only kept those 2 true tight ends. You had Lawrence Cager. Now he's on the practice squad, but Darren Waller gets hurt. Now you only have 1 tight end, and Daniel Bellinger gets you out of the packages that you may want to run. Not having another tight end on this roster, that was a risk. And guess what? It blew up in their face. Not having depth at tackle was a risk. You cut Tyree Phillips. Now he's back on the team, but that hurt the Giants earlier in the season. A risk. Not having a true center. We're just going to cross-train a guard to play it, just like you did at tackle. Huge risk that they took. And then also not having a punt returner heading into the season was also a risk. That's one bright spot we could probably look to other than the defense was Gunnar O, because he looked pretty competent and capable out there. But every calculated risk that Joe Schoen took for this roster, for what Brian Daboll was going to be working with, ended up blowing up in the Giants' face and didn't work out.
Yeah, there's no way to deny that. It's just like we said, these are undeniable facts about what's going on with this team right now, Nick. And it's a shame, honestly, that we have gotten to a point where they could have actually regressed like this. Like, I had a text from a friend today, shout out Phil Delemy, who's like, I literally was sick to my stomach watching that unravel. And he's like, no, I actually like a stomach ache. And I was like, I get that. I do get that. It was sickening to watch. Like, how do you lose that football game in the way they lost that football game? And like you said, Jets gave them every chance. Like, the Giants should have lost this football game, to be honest. The Jets, that was a really stupid drive that they allowed that DeVito touchdown. The Giants ran the ball every single play except for one. The Jets caused a penalty on third down to extend the drive. And there was one more stupid one later in the game. You brought it up. What was the second stupid thing they did? Later, was it an offside? No, the punt. The Giants were punting. Remember that? And then the Jets went offside.
Yeah, Michael Clemens jumped offside.
7 minutes of clock on that, the Giants. So the Jets did everything they could to help the Giants win this game. But the Giants played a very low margin of error game. Like these type of random variants, you invite that. When you run the ball every play, you invite that. And the Giants didn't even do their game plan the right way, Nick. I said this on Twitter, and I'm sure you noticed this too. They didn't burn every second of the play clock every play. That's the obvious move. Like if you're playing this style of game, you burn every second of the play clock every single time. And they were not doing that because I was focusing on that.
And Dan, how many seconds were left when Zach Wilson spiked the football?
I think it was like 2 or 1 at that point.
No, it was 1. Yeah, that's
One,
the
yeah.
point. If they just burned a little
Right.
bit more time, because that was the
Of course.
obvious approach. We saw it last week with Washington too. They were just playing really slow, and I get it. Washington was playing really slow against the Giants, trying to score a touchdown to tie the football game up. Giants were doing that here. It's like, hey, we're up by 3. This is a game of field position. If we're going to speak on the field position thing, the Giants, man, Jamie Gillen had a couple boomers, but he had a couple just shit punts in this
He had
game.
a bad day. He had a horrible day.
Yeah, just a couple just botched ones at the most high leverage points. And you look across the field at Thomas Morstead, he pinned the Giants in the 5-yard line like 3 separate times, just wasting drive. I don't know. I feel like
this is second Morstead. There's how many Morsteads are there?
I don't know. There's a lot of Morsteads.
I'm gonna look this up because I'm so curious. I feel like he's
kicking balls out there. But Dan, dude, man, this is another game where the Giants clearly won the turnover battle too. They forced 2 turnovers and they lose. True. They had 38 minutes of possession, 38-13 to 25-38, and they lose against in a competitive game. So it wasn't even like the Miami game where it was a blowout. They still found a way to lose this football game. It just seems like any way the Giants can find a way to lose a game, they're going to find a way to lose a game in 2023. Just the complete opposite from last year, where they had a lot of fortunate wins and they were able to come out victorious in those really close matchups. Now it's the complete opposite.
Yeah, it's the opposite of last year, but it's like, unfortunately, as we come to terms with the reality of these situations, it's the more, consistent of what they've been. It is more consistent, I should say, of what they've been over the last 5 or 10 years. Because how many times besides last year were we saying, how did they find a way to lose that game? I can't believe it. You know what I mean? And it's not even that. It's like, this is the second year we've had to watch fake football. This is fake football. Like when we go do the film this week, this is fake bullshit. We'll watch an insane amount of run. Like when we do the offensive film, that's fake football to me. It's not a real game. They're just running the ball every play. Like, oh, we'll try something new in the run game. They hit a couple runs. Great. You ran the ball 90 times in a row. You're going to hit a couple runs. You're going to spring a couple blocks. Occasionally the execution is going to be fine. Like it's boring bullshit. It's not real. They didn't play football in the second half and they almost won anyway, because their defense was that good and they knew that. And I get that. So I'm totally fine with the game plan, given the situation with Tyrod knocked out of the game and with Daniel Jones not healthy enough to play. Fine. I get it. But why are we watching a team that's now 2 years we've watched of fake games? It was fake games for the end of the Fromm thing, that Fromm Glennon shit, or at least when Fromm was in there, it was fake. And it's fake again with DeVito in there. Like they need to have a backup plan, Nick, where you can still run a freaking off. Like Tyler Bagent comes in and they're still running an offense in Chicago. They're not running the ball every play. They're letting him run the offense. DeVito, if he plays next week, they better let him run the offense. I don't want to see this bullshit again. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think any Giants fan sitting here gives a fuck about winning next week 10-7 with this kind of shit game plan. They want real. They want to see fucking plays. They want to see some pass plays. It was fucking throw a ball to Hyatt. Do something. It was ridiculous. Nobody wants to watch this shit. It's terrible. It's embarrassing. It's not fun. This is not good. We're nowhere near where we need to be. Big questions need to be asked about everything, but there's no real good answers because if you keep changing out coaches and GMs, you're fucked too. And I choose my language. It's going to have to be when we put the explicit warning on, Nick. But it's just insane. Like it feels like everything that we built towards last year, Nick, it was a waste, was fool's gold, potentially put us in the wrong direction by making us think that we were there and then making all these decisions to build on this roster. Now, you're never not going to do it. I'm not going to entertain people who said they wouldn't, because that's just the reality of sports. And that happened with Julius Randle in the Knicks. It happens in every sport with different people. That's just how it goes. You make a playoff run, quote unquote, if you want to call that a run, you won a game that's worth something big. You have to run that back. Now, at some point, Nick, though, we will have to ask ourselves the question, because you and I did not do a good job of addressing this. At some point, we will have to ask ourselves the question, and this is not for now, because this is not a discussion about him, but I want to put this out there because it will be broached on at some point. We have to ask ourselves at some point, Nick, were we wrong in saying that the right decision was the one made versus the decision of re-signing Barkley, knowing that it is an injury-prone position, but re-signing him and tagging Jones? Because that's the thing. Or just tagging Jones. Because at some point we're gonna have to ask ourselves that question. We'll see. Jones still has a season to come back, and they're gonna play him again, and he's gonna have to improve. But it just doesn't feel good right now where they're at. And I know it's not his fault, blah, 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 but it just doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good.
No, it doesn't feel good. And I think we're also at this spot right now with the trade deadline just a couple of days away where maybe you could start to reclaim some assets for a build to the future by getting rid of Adoree Jackson. It doesn't seem like Saquon is even on the chopping block, as Brian Daboll has alluded to through the week and a bunch of reports, which I'm not suggesting that he should be. But then what's the plan with Saquon Barkley? That has to be addressed. Are you going to, you have to sign him, right? You're not just going to let him walk out the door and then recoup a comp pick possibly later down. Like, how are you going to approach that? So there's a lot of decisions in these next couple of days that the New York Giants have to make regarding some of the top guys on their roster, or at least perceived top guys on the roster heading into the season. And Adoree Jackson, Leonard Williams, who I don't know if anybody's going to trade for that. I don't know if anybody wants freaking Paris Campbell. But Dan, we got to get to some of these questions. Tenacity 47, thank you so much for the donation. He says, it has felt like our coaches have played not to lose for so many years, and Daboll was different last year, but not anymore. Any chance he's a great OC, bad head coach? Look, I'm not going to say he's a bad head coach just off of today. I think he is, like I said, calling the game the way he would because of the weather, going up against a good defense with a backup quarterback, not with the best offensive line. When they did try to pass, they were sacked a few different times, specifically when Tyrod was in there. So I think that really led to the conservative approach, that and the fact that the Jets weren't doing anything because the Giants defense was so damn dominant. But man, I start to like look at all of these issues that have happened this season. They're starting to compound on top of each other to where, well, we already said this, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, the twinkle in the twinkles around Brian Daboll, right? Like oh man, this guy, we got a great head coach, man. This is going to give us an edge. That is kind of gone now. Not saying it can't be reclaimed, but those moments and that feeling is gone. And now we're back to, if you keep sucking and you keep making mistakes and this keeps trending in the wrong direction, maybe the seat will get hot. I don't think there's a chance Brian Daboll gets fired at the end of this season, nor do I think he should. Giants are recycling through coaches. I don't think that's conducive at all. But man, it's a big step in a direction where I'm like, I got to start questioning this coach a lot more than I thought I was going to at the beginning of the season.
Yeah. Tenacity 47. Thank you for your donation. Thank you for your question. Throw that back up there real quick, Nick, so I can see it again. Just to answer your question, I think the answer to your question is yes, we should be considering, is Brian Daboll a great OC and a bad coach? Or, is he even a great OC because he potentially wore his welcome? Not saying he's not or he is. I'm just saying it's worth considering. 1 year of him being a great coach does not confirm the opposite, which is that he is a great head coach. That's the only point I'm making there. I think it's more just open-ended at this point as to what his ceiling is as a coach long-term. And I think he's coaching differently this year. Like, he coached the first week of last season by going for 2 against the Titans. That's the exact opposite decision today when he didn't go for it on 4th and 1 and he kicked the field goal. It's literally the exact opposite decision. And he's made those decisions throughout this season, and he's just coached a different style. It's not the same aggressive style that set the tone for last year when he went for 2 and ended up giving them the win over the Titans in that game. In a lot of ways, setting up their playoff run. He just has to get back to that. As far as like what I want out of him, though, like the reason I'm still high on him and why I don't think they should fire him is because I still think his ceiling, if they get him the right quarterback, and I'm not even going to say offensive line because the Bills didn't even really have that good of an offensive line during Josh Allen's years. You don't need it when your quarterback's that good. It all just comes down to your quarterback in the end. Like, I get it. The line can't be as bad as the Giants was at times this year. That I agree with. What Jones dealt with in Miami, you can't have that. That's obvious. And some of the other games this year were just as bad. Dallas, whatever. But as you can get the offensive line to a point where it can be successful and you could still have a great offense like the Bills have had, because they have not had a good offensive line. They've had a mediocre at best O-line during Allen's career. If your quarterback is great, and then you can start to see what Daboll has to offer, in my opinion, when he has a quarterback who challenges all levels of the field consistently with good arm talent that cuts through the air, with good ball placement, with good timing, with good processing, all of the things that go into the difference making to quarterbacks. Like, so, and look, that's a lot to ask, because maybe Pat Shurmur could have been good with that kind of quarterback, Nick, right? Or maybe, Jason Garrett, even to an extent, could have been good with that kind of quarterback. You just never, like, that's how much quarterback means. And that's why, there are strong opinions at that position, because there are people who are recognizing, in my opinion, the importance of that position. Now, you could sit there and say, no, it doesn't matter unless you get an O-line, but you just have to trust that an O-line can be mediocre and still successful. But when you have a great O-line and a mediocre quarterback, now you need everything. You need to find a Kittle, McCaffrey, Deebo, and Ayuk all on the same team to find a way to luckily draft them together or fit them under a cap. Or you build around the quarterback with rookie picks and you get the offensive line capable. I think that makes a lot more sense to me.
Yes, Angry Dan is back. Manny Scholes says, thank you, Manny, for the donation. Man, look at what the Giants have done to my man Nick's hair. Yeah, no. Anyway, Daboll was coaching scared. Yeah, Manny, I think he was. I think he was just coaching very conservatively. And like I said, he mentioned it after the game. I take him at his face value there. That's what he was attempting to do. And if they were able to make that field goal, you go up by only 6. The Jets could still win the football game with a touchdown and an extra point. But yeah, bro, it's been absolutely brutal. Anything on that, bud?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Manny Scholes. And I said I wasn't going to get angry, but it's hard not to when this team looks this bad. So it is what it is. Reading some of the comments right now, Nick, I'm not going off the deep end. No, I'm not trying to do that. I'm here. I'm still here. I'm not off the deep end. And look, Patrick Waterman, we can't get back into this, Patricia Waterman, but no, nobody's saying you put a rookie quarterback right behind this offensive line and everything's going to be great. No one, that's never the point. It's never about that. It's all about finding the quarterback long-term, making sure he's good. This O-line, first of all, it's going to get better once Thomas is back. It's already playing better than it was. You can get an O-line capable. This O-line is not going to be as bad as it was at times this year. But one thing that you can never fix is if you're not consistent enough in the passing game. If you're not challenging all 3 levels of the field, if you're not moving a ball, if you're not scaring defenses into playing too high, these are all non-negotiable things. You have no ceiling without them. You just don't. And so I just have to leave it at that. But Victor Perez, let's get into this comment.
Am I the only one that feels today's game could or should be used as evidence in a tanking investigation? Damn, Victor. Nah, yeah, that would be wild. And I think Brian Daboll, I couldn't even imagine like the emptiness, that pit in his stomach right now after blowing this game to a crosstown rival. Oh man, it's gotta suck, man. But it's tough in the streets of being a New York Giants fan. Ronald Gagne, maybe? I don't know. But thank you so much. I understand trying to be conservative and take points, he says. But after he missed the first one, raining 2 blocks this year already, and him missing, it's an excellent point, Ronald. Absolutely. All you need is a yard. You have Saquon Barkley, and guess what? If you don't pick up that yard, you're right in that same situation that you're in before. So you still are relying on that defense. You still are relying on them to not allow Zach Wilson to drive down the football field, something that young quarterback didn't do the entire game. And if you pick up that yard, game's freaking over. There's no other conversation. Jets are going to be out of timeouts. Boom, you win. So yeah, it's tough. It's a tough pill to swallow.
Well, I think you nailed it, Ronald. 2 block kicks already this year, a missed kick already in this game, a missed chip shot last game, raining, injury, potentially. He says nothing but potential injury. All those 5 factors working against a field goal. Or you go to the other side, which is you're 16 of 19 this year in 3rd and 1 and 4th month situations, the 3rd best rate in the NFL. And if you get it, like Nick said, you win the game. It becomes a no-brainer in that context, in my opinion, but not to Brian Daboll at the time.
David Goodman, thank you so much, David. He says, great job as always. I feel like today will be best in the long run. I can see them drafting high enough for Caleb Williams or Drake May. At this point, that is the hope. We never want our team to lose games, but man, if you can get a quarterback that's you can build with through the future and it transcends and just absolutely turns your franchise around, it's something you got to sign up for. Because right now, we're in a 2-6 season. We didn't think we'd be in a 2-6 season, Dan. We thought that the New York Giants were going to get off to a slow start because of the schedule that they had, but the way they're losing these games, it reminds me so much, and I know we already said it, man, but it reminds me so much of Joe Judge with Jason Garrett as his offensive coordinator. Just like, how did you find a way to lose this game? Like week 2 in 2021 against Washington, Dexter jumping off sides. The Monday Night Football game against Kansas City with O'Shane jumping off sides. Like plays like that where it's like, oh my God, it's that same feeling that I have. It seems like it was forever ago because we had a beautiful 2022 season, but holy crap, man, it's just right back in our souls.
Yeah, and thanks, David. Obviously, you've been supporting the show for a while. Really appreciate this donation as well. As far as like if it will be better in the long run, obviously I know Nick never likes to touch on this stuff, and I tread the water because I understand it's very explosive topic, but it is possible that this is better for them in the long run. That's the, I don't like to just beat around the bush and say fake shit to you guys. It is obviously possible that this is better for them in the long run to get a loss, depending on what happens with that draft position. But you never know. That's the thing, because it seemed like it was going to be better the year that they won that game against Washington in 2019, but ended up being worse because they would have had Chase Young instead of Andrew Thomas, and they would rather have Andrew Thomas than Chase Young.
Yes.
So just to keep in mind, it's not a guarantee that it will be better if you have a higher draft position. And as far as your other point about them being in position to potentially take one of those quarterbacks, I don't know. Like, it's possible, I guess. Like, Carolina had a win today. Maybe they can start winning some games. I can't see the Bears winning too many more games, Nick. I don't know, but that team looks horrible to me. The Giants, like, if Daniel Jones comes back and Andrew Thomas comes back, they're going to win games down the stretch. I know it. So my guess right now, David, would be that the Giants are not going to be in a position to draft a quarterback unless they like one of the third or through whatever quarterback. So my position right now is that I think they're not going to have the first pick. That means Caleb, and they're not going to have like the second or third pick, which means Drake May. So that's my guess right now, but they could keep losing. Like, they're going to lose next week, I think, if they don't have a quarterback. So, I mean, how do they win without a quarterback in a passing game? I don't know. They almost did it today somehow.
It's just wild. Yeah, I know. The fact that they almost won that game is pretty crazy. One thing, because I see so many Jet fans taking like victory laps and like talking shit, and like Sauce Gardner like saying, like, taking like so much pride. It's like, dude, you guys played a practice squad undrafted free agent at quarterback, and it took so many bad decisions and mistakes by the Giants to even get you back into a situation where you could win this football game. And you're doing it. I'm sorry to tell you this. You're doing it against a shitty football team. You're not beating a good football team. The Giants are not a good football team right now. They're finding ways to lose. That's what bad football teams do. They have a good defense. Yeah, they have a good defense, and the defense played
great at times.
The defense played phenomenal in this game. But if you're taking a victory lap of beating the 2-6 New York Giants, you might want to reevaluate the rest of the season.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. Joe Winograd, thank you so much. He says, have to be happy with our defense today. Hey, right on cue. I'd say that our biggest weakness is offensive line, but our biggest need is quarterback. You guys are my go-to Giants podcast. Please like and subscribe, everybody. Joe, thank you so much, man. That was a lovely comment, and I think he's right, man. Like, the biggest need is a quarterback. It is.
He described it so freaking well. I hope that, first of all, thank you, Joe, for the donation, but even more so, thank you for a great description of it. That I hope people who are on the other side can take a step back right quick here and just consider that line right there. Our biggest weakness is the offensive line, but the biggest need remains quarterback. Now, what does he mean by that? What he means by that, and you can tell me if your interpretation is different, Nick. What he means by that is, yes, their worst position group is O-line, but that doesn't mean it's their biggest need. The biggest need is always going to be, do you have a quarterback who gives you a chance to consistently compete for a Super Bowl? Until you have that, that's your biggest need. How many situations do we need to see play out? Nick and I are big believers, because we watch enough tape, that Kirk Cousins is unbelievably good compared to the rest of the NFL quarterback. And yet even that level is still not good enough. They've never made any run there with him. And they've gotten him a number one receiver, and they've gotten him a good offensive line with good pass protection and 2 good tackles, and they still can't make a run. That shows you. And Cousins is like the 7th or 8th best player on film at the position. That's how bad the position is league wide. Me and him, Nick, watch him throw drive power throws all across the field. We were talking about this the other day with Matt Sims, who also really liked him. Drive power throws at all 3 levels consistently, Kirk Cousins, with anticipation. He throws at all 3 levels. He challenges the defense at all 3 levels. You have to play him at all 3 levels. He makes throws while getting hit, under poise, and yet that's still not good enough. Think about that. And just think about that. Because if you think the ceiling for Jones is, I saw someone put this in the comments, we could get Goff-like production out of him. You don't want Goff-like production. You just don't want that. Cousins is the peak of this and still not good enough.
No, yeah, I'm right there with you. It's
Wait, he also had another point there, Nick. Sorry, I don't know if you want to say something first on that.
No, I'm right there with you. This is something that we've been saying on this podcast since we essentially started it, and we started it Daniel Jones's first game, so we were hoping he would become that guy
in that game. He really did.
Week 3, 2019, was it?
Big difference maker in that game. As far as what he said about the defense, Nick, I didn't want to gloss over that. We should touch on this because the defense played phenomenal today. I want to start with Kayvon Thibodeaux, who had 3 sacks and a forced fumble that was recovered by the Giants for a turnover and 3 points that he created on his own. He had what should have been a game-winning sack on a really cool move that Carl Banks posted to Twitter that I'm excited to get your breakdown on, Nick. He called it a double move, which I've never actually heard that termed for a pass rusher, a double move, but it was a cool looking move. This was 1 week after he was called out by the WFAN host for not making an impact, not making a difference. I'll say this, they kept saying, Nick, what's his defining trait? I actually feel like Kayvon does have a trait that to me looks different and considerably better than some of the best sack artists in the NFL. And right now he's up there with like league leading type sack type situations right now, right? He has 7 after this game, which has got to put him up there, I assume. And one thing I think he does, and this is in part due to, the physical traits, which is his length, but I think he closes really well for a pass rusher. I think when he gets near the quarterback, he has a really good job of using his arms and just doesn't waste a lot of movement to get his hand like on the football to force a fumble or just to close a play and sack a quarterback. I think he's a very good closing pass rusher. And that's, to me, if those WFAN hosts ask me, that's the trait I'd say. And I think you saw that on some of those plays today, the first sack and the third sack specifically.
Yeah, he definitely has closing, man. He maintains a lot of acceleration and explosiveness when he's like turning those tight corners. And his pursuit is also, I would say, certainly above average. It did help, and I'm not taking anything away from Kayvon, but it did help that Zach Wilson has like a shitty internal clock. Like he should have got rid of like a really bad internal clock. Yeah. But yeah, no, Kayvon Thibodeaux had a great game. Absolutely love that. And then I saw Robert Mays tweeted, True Media had Dexter Lawrence with 14 pressures in this game. Like I wonder what PFF has to say about that. I'm not sure if there's a difference in calculating pressures, but oh my God, he was running through every center that they had. And I know they had like 3 or 4 centers because they were injured as well.
That also was part of it. The Jets had some center issues, but Dexter Lawrence was just fucking dominating this game.
God.
Like, the case can be made. He's one of the 3 or 4. The Giants have one of the 3 or 4 best and most impactful defensive players in the entire NFL with Dexter Lawrence. A really good case can be made for that.
He does so much for a defense and what the defense wants to do structurally. Because if you want to play a gap and a half with him, and we've seen this on tape and we've gone over it on tape, he can hang in the A gap, put his hips into the backside A gap while also closing the front side. He does that shit like all the time. And like Dexter Lawrence is such a weapon. And the run defense in general in this game, I think Breece Hall averaged like 1.9 yards per carry.
Good. It wasn't for again.
Dude, the run defense was shut down the Jets. That was the Jets game plan. If it wasn't for a broken play where Bobby Okereke set to the inside of Breece Hall to box or to spill him out to all of the other pursuit defenders.
McFadden took such a bad angle on that play.
McFadden took a bad angle. Jason Pinnock had no idea. Pinnock had a good game too. He did. He had a couple PBUs in coverage.
He had a good game. Pinnock is good at some things, but I don't think he's good at, Nick, is that touchdown. What happened to him? Just like spatial awareness on broken, like run after catch.
Why would you throw your shoulder into him?
Yeah, like, it just doesn't make sense.
And then Xavier McKinney got blocked out of that play too. But Breece Hall is just, man, he's one of the, he has to be one of the most explosive running backs in the league. Like he's just an insane player. But I'm really proud of what the New York Giants defense was able to do. Yeah. Other than at the end of the game, that was rough, man. 2 29-yard passes. Wow.
I said it at one point. They had 10 possessions on defense in the first half. The Giants defense. I don't even know what it ended at, but it must have been like 15 to 20 possessions for this defense. Like the Giants offense was literally just run punting for most of this game. Just the Jets were football game to watch.
The Jets converted 2 of 15 third downs,
and those were all at the end.
Exactly. Like it's just so
to start. Like, and I think the Giants aren't much. What are the Giants at? Not much better, right?
2 of 19. No, 2 of 19. Yeah.
Oh my God, this game featured 4 of 30 third down conversions. Think of how bad football that is. We watched today one of the worst football games that might be played in the next decade. It might honestly be one of the worst. 4 of 30 these teams combined for on third down. It went to overtime, disgustingly, and it ended 13-10. One of the worst football games. We witnessed one of the worst football. We thought it couldn't get worse than that Fromm game where they victory formed that 3rd and 9. This honestly was up there for as bad. Between all the mistakes Daboll made, the stupidity to lose that game, the stupid stuff by the Jets did too on their side, the Jermaine Johnson thing, and then the offsides and the punt. This is one of the worst played football games of the entire year and might be of the next decade. Our team played it. We're not close to a Super Bowl. And that's a sad factor. If you're close, you don't play games like this. It just doesn't look like this. And look, there are factors here. And the defense played good. But, like, God damn, man. 4 of 30 combined on third downs. It was a football game that we watched today.
Yeah,
Just
it was
sickening.
disgusting. It was absolutely gross. D-Kit, thank you so much. As always, he says, guys, like it or not, time to hit the reset button. The Jones era is over. Time to shed payroll, acquire draft picks, and bring in a new quarterback one. Was DJ even engaged in the game, helping DeVito and the offense? I can't say if he was or wasn't. I would imagine that he was helping DeVito. DeVito said after the game that he was relying a lot on John Michael Schmitz and Saquon Barkley because Tyrod was his big springboard for a lot of, training camp and just learning from a veteran while DJ was taking first team snaps. I don't know the dynamic on a sideline. If Daniel Jones is like getting involved like that, I'm not really 100% certain, but yeah, dude, it is time for a reset button. At least right now. I mean, you got to start looking for the future. And like I said, we have 2.5 days until the trade deadline. You have some movable pieces. What are you going to get though? Like a fourth at best, fifth, sixth?
Probably not. Bayard went for nothing. Like, I think the market's just so bad because of that. That's
I mean,
only issue.
Yeah. You got to look at these playoff eligible teams who like desperately needs a cornerback. Like maybe you could say the Bills. Maybe the Bills would want an Adoree Jackson after losing Trey White. What are you going to get from your guy, Brandon Beane? I'm not sure. It's mainly just going to be a salary dump at this point.
Right. Which you don't even really need to do or worry about. It's just, that's the problem. That's why I think it's part of why the Giants were, so comfortable in telling Saquon Barkley last week, like, don't worry about it. We love you, man. We got your back. We're not going to trade you, because they're like, part of when it's easy to say that when the best offer is like a 5th or 4th round pick. If someone came knocking with this 2 seconds, like the McCaffrey trade, what did the Niners give up 2 seconds, I believe, for that? The tune might change for Joe Shane, but I just think he's well aware that, like, in a contract year, this age, with his injury history, Barkley's not fetching more than like a 4 or 5 on the trade deadline. And to them, it's not worth it to get a 4 or 5. And because that would really, the problem for them is, it's like, I've always thought this dynamic in football is so interesting to me, Nick. You can't, to be sellers at the deadline, right? And one end, you could say to yourself, Nick, why do I not just get anything I can get for guys like Barkley and Adoree and players who are free agents that we might not re-sign? I might as well take the 4. I might as well take the 5 and another 5. Who knows what those picks could be? It could be another Bellinger. It could be better than a Bellinger if we hit this perfect. And that's cool. On the other hand, you can think of it and saying, all we're getting is a couple 5s and a 4, maybe, for all of our assets. And then we're telling the locker room we're quitting in the middle of a season.
Yeah.
And that's the dynamic that's always fascinated me so much. It's such a physical sport, and it's such a team sport with 53 players. It's like, it's even if it's in your best interest to do that, it doesn't really work out in this sport. Like, you do it you see it in NBA and it works out fine. Those guys don't give it up. Those guys don't give a shit. Who cares? They let the season run out. I see so many teams in the NBA season basically not trying is the best way I can describe that. At least not giving 100% max effort. But football's a sport where, like, you can't play it unless you're giving 100% max effort. So it's just such an interesting dynamic. That's part of why I don't think they're going to really be sellers at the deadline, Nick. Like, you're right. Maybe Adoree gets flipped for a 5, I would think. But even then, like, the upside is so small.
It gets younger players on the field, like Cordell Flott, who also looked good. I think players like Adoree you could trade, and it's not going to be the biggest impact on your locker room. Saquon, if he got traded, that would be a massive.
Same thing with Leonard, I think, would be a massive one too.
Yeah, Leonard to a certain degree. I think the Giants, look, man, the way Cordell Flott's playing, I know people are mad at Adoree Jackson right now because of the whoever, I think Malik Turner, it might be his name, that play where he had the pass interference. And I understand that, but still, Adoree Jackson, he hasn't been great this season. You still watch the tape, you still see him in coverage, and there are reasons why he's not targeted all the time. It's because he's in good man coverage. Right now, you're seeing a lot of offenses attack Cordell Flott, or at least attempt to. It's not really working out well for them.
Yeah, he's playing really well.
He's playing really well, and I wanted to shout him out too. I'm excited to watch him on the
starting to get more from their draft picks between Flott and McFadden from last year, and obviously the players this year who have looked good. Like, I'm not going to put anything on Hyatt today. I mean, you can't put anything on any of the receivers. I can't even imagine what it was like to play receiver for the Giants today.
Jeez.
Crazy.
That must be bad. HB Greg, thank you so much. He says, the past decade of New York Giants has been generally substandard. Very true. Different staff, different players, same thing. Tired of it. Hopefully this season leads to a better future. Thank you for the great content as always. Well, thank you so much for the donation. Not really a question, just a statement that is evident towards everybody. It's been really shitty being a Giants fan over the last decade or so.
Yeah, I think you're it sucks to say, but you're almost in a lot of ways, and not purposely. I know this, or intentionally. We are selling it short because it's been worse than substandard. Going into last year, the Giants and the Jets had the worst record in the NFL over the 5 years, I believe it was, or the whatever it was, 6-7 years before that. So it's worse than it's worse than the league type of shit for most of it, our fanhood, except for this year before this. And I don't know if we can consider the Giants there right now, but it's hard to. You can certainly make a case right now that they're one of the worst teams in the NFL. It's still weird because they basically dominated the Redskins last week, who almost beat the Eagles. But
I mean, the defense kind of dominated the Jets this week, and I get Zach Wilson.
It's looked good for like 3 straight weeks.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
that's my point. Sometimes, man, like your defense, if you're going up against a Sam Howell type of team, you get, and something about Sam Howell and Washington, they play the Eagles well. They beat the Eagles last year.
Threw for 300 today against the Eagles. What the fuck was that?
And it looked
like he didn't even play football against the Giants.
I know, and it was a relatively competitive game too.
It was. I didn't watch the game, Nick, but like, I wonder if you're the Eagles, like, you have your system and you're so like set in your ways, but like, don't you think you should have just copied exact game plan Wake Martindale ran against Sam Howell? They would have had no option for that at all. Like, how was the interior defensive line of the Eagles not dominating that interior offensive line and Nick Gates? Like, that was shocking to me. Like, how does Sam Howell even have time to get the ball off for 300 yards? Like, weird.
Sounded like you said Sam Towell, so it reminded me of Tally from South Park. All right, here's a fun exercise from Shane. Thank you so much for the donation. He said, how would you guys rate each of our quarterbacks on a scale of 0 to 100? So let's look at this like it's Madden, and we're taking it. How do you want to do this? From the last time we saw them, or they're kind of average every game, what they're usually like? That's really going to affect Daniel Jones's score.
Yeah. I'm curious what Shane would want to know. Like, maybe let's rate him moving forward, because that's really all that matters at this point.
Oh, moving forward? Okay.
Projection of our ranking for them moving forward.
Okay, 0 to 100. This is Madden. We'll go with that as a framework. I'm going to say Daniel Jones 73, Tyrod Taylor 69, 70. Let's go with 70, and then DeVito's like a 62 or something.
I don't know.
We just haven't seen him pass the football, so it's just hard to really grade him. So I'm just thinking about how Madden would do it for an undrafted free agent who has some athletic ability.
Yeah, has some athletic ability. I don't know how much.
He tried to get in the edge in the one play, and I was like, nah, bro, you're not getting. Quincy Williams was like, yeah, right.
DeVito was bad at Syracuse, really bad at Syracuse, and was like okay at Illinois, I guess, last year. I'm sure he's not going to be an NFL quarterback probably, so I'll give him a 51. I'll give Jones a 71 and a Tyrod a 69.
Nice.
Yeah.
Ronald, thank you so much for circling back. He said his last name is pronounced Gagne, is the correct pronunciation. Also, another 8 yards of field position could make a big difference in how you defend and how they attack. That might have been a comment from something that we said a little bit earlier. Ronald Gagne, thank you so much. We also have Tom Ty. Tom Ty, thank you so much. Says, I'd like to buy a beer for Dan and a club soda for Nick. You guys make the best content. Thank you. Also, Kayvon is him. Tom, thank you so much. I would drink that club soda. You could add a little vodka in it too. I'm not going to say no. But the whole Kayvon is him. Yeah, Kayvon really showed up in this game. Dan, I never got into the is him thing. Is that like a younger generation thing?
Definitely a younger generation thing. I think it's like the he is him or whatever. I am him. But yeah, thank you, Tom, for the donation. I appreciate it as well. And look, I love this game from Kayvon. I feel like he was slighted. He felt slighted. He even commented on social, and he came up, and what did he do? He had one of his best games of his career after that. And now that's 3 games I feel like Kayvon Thibodeaux massively impacted, almost won the Giants the game. The Washington last year, that's a single-handed win for him as far as I'm concerned. Baltimore is a closer type game, and this was another closer type game where he comes in as like a Eric Gagne, just to bring back the Gagne thing. Eric Gagne, remember him, Nick, or you don't know?
Yeah, I remember that name.
The roided closer for the Astros, for the Dodgers. He had like the record for saves, but he was on like massive amounts of roids, they found out. So which is hilarious for a pitcher, by the way.
Roger Clemens stuff.
Yeah. But what was I saying about? We're just lost my train of thought.
We're talking about how Kayvon Thibodeaux was closing games out.
Yeah, so he's closing games. That's 2 closes, and so I feel like when he gets slighted or when he feels that extra motivation level, it just gives him a better chance to even like he's had some big moments on prime time. He had a big moment in this game, so I just like that factor too. That he might have that it factor, and I think that's what you're referring to with the he is him thing, Tom.
Love it, Tom. Milan Fan Club San Diego, thank you so much for the donation. So he might be from San Diego. Maybe he's a little bit biased, but he says Giants should draft Leatu Latu, a defensive end out of UCLA. I have not watched his tape, but it's a name I'm going to store away there, Milan Fan Club San Diego. Thank you so much for the donation.
I will also take a look this offseason with Nick. Sadly, we're going to have to get to the draft season faster than we thought.
Crunch L, thank you, Crunch L. Best part of the game was Kayvon Thibodeaux making Brandon Tierney and Sal, I think his last name is Laseda, but I'm not really sure, from the fan eat their words. Anyways, here's a donation to make the lousy loss go down better. Great job, guys. Crunch L, thank you so much. And that is a moment, man. And we work in this industry, we create content or whatever the hell you want to call it, where you make a declarative statement and it makes its rounds and it's so popular before an event. And then on the first play of that event, the player that you're making fun of makes a huge impactful play. Yeah. It's just like, when you're watching that, they're like, ah, shit.
Like, they were pissed. Yeah. Like, even if they don't admit it, they're, oh no, we're hoping for the best for the player. They were definitely hoping to be vindicated and him have like a bad game. I mean, who wouldn't? Of course, make that kind of comment?
Especially how everyone rightfully took Carl Banks' side. Because he's like, you don't treat Carl Banks like that, like on the air. Like, what are you doing? So the fact that happened and there was maybe he'll be quiet.
Regardless, the wrong move to make is if you host a radio show for a local radio show, local Giant fan radio show, and a legend of the team is on, like, no matter what he says, you don't hang up on him. That's your last resort. That's a no resort type of thing, unless he's doing some completely inappropriate things, which he wasn't doing. And so it's just like they got fed up with him. They didn't want to, they felt like they were talking in circles. I understand that can be frustrating, but there's so many better ways to go about that than hanging up on the person. That is crazy bad to do.
It's a wild thing.
Wild move.
Talk about vindication.
And that's the thing. Like, we put together a show this weekend, Nick, where we broke down film with former quarterback Matt Sims, which I hope people take the time to watch. And that was damn good content. I'll be honest with you. That's some fucking phenomenal content we put out there. I'm not to toot my own horn and our own horn, but I will this one time. Then you listen to the content that's on the radio, and that's the content they get. But these guys can't even say, all they could say is, you tell me, I don't watch the film. Like, I don't know. Explain to me. But then they're like, his body's weird. And he, like shit like that. And it's just like, do people even want that anymore? I don't know. Those guys have good radio voices, though. I'll give them that.
Yeah. Better radio voices than us, but we'll stick to the content that we're doing.
Tooting my own horn once again.
There we go. All right, we got.
I have a voice for TV or a face for radio. One of the two.
Oh man, no, you can't listen to that. You can't listen to that.
Just
Kid Blue RB27, thank you so much. He says, it's insane to me that Daboll went into this game with DeVito at backup quarterback and somehow has zero trust in him throwing the ball. They did nothing but work out Matt Barkley. So how is he not prepared to run the offense with DeVito? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. You go ahead, Nick.
No, I was just going to say, that's exactly what we were talking about a little bit earlier in this pod. It's like, you have no trust in your backup whatsoever. I get the context of the game. I don't fault Brian Daboll for being a little bit more conservative than normal, but you're not going to throw it all. I think there were like 3 consecutive drives, maybe 4 consecutive drives where they didn't throw the football once. So by the time it was 3rd and 4 and Saquon, they know they're getting the handoff. So they're all just crashing and filling. Saquon Barkley, how many 8-man boxes can this guy freaking face? So it's just being really one-dimensional. If you have no trust in your quarterback, it's just like, why the hell is he here? Is it just a developmental thing? Is that all it is? It's frustrating, especially with obviously the result.
I agree. Like, I'm more leaning toward give the guy a chance, or give Daboll a break, in the sense that, like, this is a tough spot to be in, but you have to have some trust for him to run some kind of passing game. If that means you just have a few concepts that you run early, like, it looked like they were going to do it too, Nick, right? Like, they had the first play designed to Bellinger. It was a miscue. It was a drop from Bellinger. I think I have to watch that back on tape. I'm not sure. I kind of feel like
might have been tipped. I'm not really sure, but
it was like tipped with bad ball placement. But like, I'll take a look. As you know how I am, I'm very lenient when it comes to drops. Some things I don't think are drops that are considered drops. But I'll have to watch it. But it looked like they were going to actually do something with it, right? Like, run some kind of boot action, whatever, do something with this kid. And then they just didn't. Like, so it is weird, and it is a knock on Daboll. I think I'm with you, Kid Blue. And it's just, you can't do this. Like, Giants fans, they wait for the shit all week. They don't want to watch a team that's playing such loser ball. That's loser style ball. I know you can win that way. They almost did win that way today, and it might have been their best chance to win. But I think people would rather go down swinging than have a chance to win like this. I just think that's how it is. Like, I just don't think you bring the kicker back out who's missed a kick this week and missed a chip shot last week, and it's raining, his confidence is down, and he's like, these decisions are just not what he did last year when he went for it on on that 2-point conversion against the Titans. But yeah, go ahead.
No, look, I'm looking back through the game right now, Dan,
Yeah.
and Tyrod Taylor got hurt towards the end of the second. They put DeVito in. One of DeVito's first passes was that Daniel Bellinger play, and then they end up going 3 and out. They punt the football after Tommy DeVito couldn't get the edge. He picked up 5 yards on a 3rd and 6. They try throwing again, sacked, loss of 4 yards. On the next drive, sacked, loss of 6 yards. And I think those 2 sacks really just kind of put it in Daboll's like, hey, we have the lead after they scored that opening touchdown by basically just giving the football to Saquon Barkley time and time again. They get the lead. And at that point, they're just like, we're not even going to risk sack because the sack will derail the drive because we can't throw the football at all. So might as well just trust Saquon Barkley. But if you're going to go with that approach, trust Saquon Barkley when it matters the most on the 4th and 1, man. You know, like, it's just one of those situations. And of course, it's easy to criticize.
Let him win you this game. Let him win you this game. It's not that easy. It's easy. It's not all hindsight sometimes. Sometimes you just know the field. Like, it's just the part of it is because Graham Gano was having issues. Like, that needs to be factored into this when you make that decision. Like, the guy already missed a kick this game. He missed a chip shot last week, and it's raining, and he hasn't been himself, and his confidence is down. Like, okay, factor all that in. But he didn't.
I know. No, but he didn't. Ronald, again, thank you so much. He says, love Jones' spirit, but he's regressed from year 1. Look at the rush, shocked from chained hits. Too many philosophies overlapping in his mind, slowing his processing. It's his biggest weakness already. And that's, I mean, honestly, people don't like to hear it. That's the Daniel Jones that we last saw on the football field. It wasn't the Daniel Jones that we saw last year because he wasn't taking those hits, right? But last time we saw Daniel Jones, it was that he was bailing pockets where he didn't have to. He was just a little bit slower putting things together, unlike Tyrod in the previous 2 games against Buffalo and Washington. And now we have Tommy D in there, and I have no idea what the hell we're going to get from a processing standpoint or from a game plan standpoint.
Yeah, go throw that back up for a second. Yeah, thank you again, Ronald Kanye. You said it was just like the baseball pitcher. I wonder. So, like Nick said it right, and you guys are right. Looking at the rush, shot from the hits, that was what he was this year. It wasn't what he was last year. But I wonder about the second point you make, because a lot of people talk about this. Does he have too many philosophies overlapping in his mind, which slows his processing down? This one I wonder about, because I think my main take with Jones is more likely that he just never was a good processor at any point. As his rookie year, he took shots and he was aggressive and it worked at times. But if you watch that Duke tape, there was no examples of anything that looks good at an NFL level. There were some. I'm sorry. People will bring it up because I remember watching the tape and you could find like 5 to 10 a year type shit. But for the most part, that offense was shotgun, RPO, quick bubble screens, get the ball out, first read, stare it down, throw it. And that's what it has been for most of Jones's career. Again, I talk about this, but we knock Jason Garrett a lot, and rightfully so, Nick. But one thing that we never really consider when we knock him was he did try to make Daniel Jones operate out of a full field progression offense, not just cut half the field off like every other coach has either tried to do with Jones or been forced to do with Jones. And what happened when a coach asked Jones to process the full field, Nick? It was the worst version we've seen of Jones by far, without even a doubt. And so the only way to even get any offense out of this guy has been if you cut half the field off. Shermer did it in year 1. Brian Daboll did it in last year. But when you cut half the field off from a processing standpoint, what's your ceiling as a passing game? What's your ceiling as an offense? And this is always the biggest issue when it comes to Daniel Jones. Like Ronald Gagne says, it was his biggest weakness already. Maybe it is getting worse by the things that you mentioned with, the different offenses, the different philosophies. It's definitely possible that it's overcomplicating things for him, but there is no real examples of it ever really being better. He had some decent moments last year, but most of it was just coaching, to be completely honest. He made good plays, great, and his legs, great plays with his legs, and a couple great throws. He made some great throws, but this is the problem with these debates. Everyone always goes, "Do you remember this throw from this game this time?" It's like, yeah, you can come up with 3 to 5 examples. What you need is 30 to 50 examples. You don't need 3 to 5 great throws a year. You need 30 to 50 great throws a year to be consistent and to have a chance. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, the consistent Super Bowl contenders, whoever else you want to put in there, are making 30 to 50 of them a year. So don't come back at me like, this example happened one time in 2022. There was 2 in 2021, 3 in no. No, give me 30 to 50 or I don't care and I don't want it and there's no ceiling with it.
Look, it's Daniel Jones played well within the framework of the offense that Brian Daboll was running.
Right.
But if Daniel Jones had more of a ceiling and could do more things, Brian Daboll's offense would have expanded and there would have been more options, meaning more ways to attack defenses. And I think that's just a reality. That's what we see on tape. I think that's what a lot of people who aren't affiliated with the New York Giants, when they discuss Daniel Jones and go through the tape, and they're tape heads, tape nerds, they also come up with the same conclusion there.
Yeah.
And yes, he executed the offense well, but we want the offense to expand. We want the offense to have more so the Giants can do more offensively. And Daniel Jones kind of prevents them from doing that, or at least he has up until this point, and he's already on a second contract. It's not on a rookie deal anymore.
Yeah. And like that's right there. You just described it best, I think, Nick. And it's and he could still do it. It's possible. But like some of these takes people have are just are a bit, they're just hard at times. Like someone said in the comments, and I'm not trying to call you out, so I won't call you by name, but DJ carried our team so hard in 2021. No, he really didn't. Okay.
2021.
Or yeah, that was the year with because of how bad it looked with Fromm. Everyone thinks that made DJ look great or whatever.
Oh.
It's like, yeah, obviously, if you put a D3, if you put an out of NFL guy who should have never started in a game, he's going to look a lot worse. And like, that doesn't mean your guy is better. It just means that the other guy wasn't an NFL quarterback or anywhere close. Like before he got injured in 2021, the Giants weren't winning any football games. How is that carrying a team? Type stuff. It's just tough, guys. Like we gotta like settle in and get a grip on this stuff. There's what Nick just said is the real factor. And when other people evaluate Daniel Jones, it's not a good mark. People aren't affiliated with the Giants, aren't giving him good marks. I tried to get JT O'Sullivan on the show. He doesn't want to go and join the show because he doesn't want to break down Daniel Jones film. He breaks down like every quarterback in the NFL. He doesn't want to watch Daniel Jones. Why do you think that is? Why does he not want to do it, guys? Like, why does everyone else but Giants fans think that this guy is not getting it done? It's just, we got to at some point come to grips with some of this stuff and understand that like improvements must be made by Daniel Jones ASAP at this point when he gets back.
ASAP. Diego Ortiz, man, thank you so much. It's very kind of you. Thank you. Diego says, hey guys, this one hurts. And Dan, did you get a chance to talk with Alex Rollins? Would love a collab to break down this offense.
Yeah, thank you, Diego. I know you mentioned we DM'd a little bit about this. I haven't reached out to him yet just because it hasn't really worked within the schedule just yet. But maybe this is better for like an off-season thing, I think, Diego, potentially. Because I think here's the thing. We did a great, again, I'm going to toot my horn again, but I hope those who haven't seen it will watch it. But we did a great breakdown this past week with Matt Sims, obviously son of Phil Sims, former quarterback for the Jets. He played at college football, Tennessee, knows a shit ton about football. He broke down film with us. Unbelievable. And like, to be honest, like it kind of got buried a little bit because that's happened sometimes in the middle of a season. So if we're going to do something like this, a really good content piece, which it would be, Diego, it's better served in the off season. More eyeballs will get on it. And it's too good. I don't want to bury it. That's just the honest truth of it.
Yeah, I hate the fact that the Matt Sims one is kind of getting buried. So if you haven't checked that out, you want to learn something from a former professional quarterback, son of or New York Giant great, please go check that out. Victor Perez, thank you so much. If you could guarantee either upgrading the quarterback position or both guard positions in the draft, which would you pick? Rest of the roster remains intact. It's the quarterback position. Yeah, 100%. It's always going to be the quarterback position, especially if we're talking about a top 5 ceiling on a quarterback. If you're just drafting someone who's young on a rookie deal, like I know Will Levis just lit it up today, but if it was like a Will Levis, no, I wouldn't really necessarily be interested in that. But if you're referring to a Trevor Lawrence or a player like that, yeah, it's always going to be the quarterback position.
Yeah, I think Nick nailed it. If the quarterback has top 5 potential, and we mean by that like top 5 NFL potential, it's worth it. If you're just drafting the next Kenny Pickett, no.
Ugh. KP. D-Kit, thank you so much again. He said, guys, I think someone like Bo Nix might be available to us. Also, we need a stud guard. This draft is offensive line heavy. Can't wait for the draft stuff. D-Kit, we can't wait for the draft stuff either. And we're going to dive into it more than likely early. I should be moved back to New Jersey by that point. I'm going to be moving back shortly in a couple weeks. Excited for that. But Bo Nix, I feel like this is somebody who, you know, I watch college football. I wouldn't say I'm a diehard college football fan. I usually am doing some things on Saturday. This year, I'm able to watch a little bit more. I just feel like this guy's been in college football forever. Wasn't he at Auburn
Yeah, he was at
for a while?
Auburn
Yeah, he was
forever.
at Auburn for a while. Now he's out there freaking slinging the ball for what, Oregon? So
Oregon.
I
I
would I would
haven't
need
seen too much of him yet, D-Kit. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Nick. I didn't
I
mean to
would
cut
just
you
say
off.
I'd have to like sit there and watch all 22. I watched him just on like broadcast, tough son
Yeah.
of a bitch, running over people, athletic, all that kind of shit. But I need to watch more.
I haven't seen any tape yet, so we'll wait for that, D-Kit. But I did see him broadcast Angle versus Penix or Penix. I don't know how you pronounce that last name, the Washington Oregon game. And I thought that Penix was the far superior quarterback from projection standpoint to the NFL, just personally from watching that game. So just putting that out there.
Bill Harnett, thank you so much. You two over WFAN
Thank you, Bill.
all day long. Thanks, guys. Bill, thank you so much for your support as always. You are the man. And then we have Tay here says, thank you so much, Tay. I said this before, but look at what Eric Bieniemy is doing with that offensive line and Sam, coaching difference. No NFL team should be this bad in the red zone.
Yeah, but what about last week with the enemy in Washington
Yeah.
against the Giants? They didn't really move the ball at all, and they got dominated, and they only scored 7 points because Giants fumbled a punt. So I don't know if that's the answer, what Washington's doing, but they did look good against the Eagles. Somehow they know how to beat that Eagles system.
I'll tell you something. The New York Giants, if they're going to go out and look the way they did against the Eagles 3 times last year, specifically 2, because week 18, you can kind of write off a little bit. They should probably turn to Eric Bieniemy and be like, okay, what did you guys do against Philadelphia? Because we can't do shit against these teams.
Yeah.
All right. SOS Archive. Thank you so much. Hopefully that's how you say that. Hate to be that guy, but a part of me wants to have a top 3 pick now after today for the first time in my life. I don't think you should hate to be that guy. Be that guy. Live your life. Just give us all your opinions. And it makes sense for the longevity of this roster. If you have a top 3 pick, it's going to be pretty awesome for you. It's just you got to eat shit for the rest of the season, which we've ate plenty of shit so far this season already.
Yeah, I don't blame you. You should be able to fan. Everyone should be able to fan however they want to fan. You could love Daniel Jones. You could hate Daniel Jones. You could want the top 3 pick. You could want to win all these games, even if you're out of playoff contention. I want to make it clear because I feel like I've been a little harsh on Jones in the spot. I don't want to be harsh on Jones. I'm just getting very fed up with where the Giants are at as a franchise right now and where the ceiling feels to me. And if I feel like that is there, and I almost feel like in a lot of ways I tricked myself into believing in Jones after last season, unfortunately, and we'll see what happens. I know it's not his fault, blah, blah, blah. Hopefully he can get better and improve. But even if it gets that point, I need some more ceiling. I need to feel like I have a ceiling with this kid long term. And obviously now with the neck injuries too, that's another factor. Like I've tweeted about this week, Nick, like a lot of discussion this week on Jones, a lot of discussion on Taylor and blah, 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 bullshit about them too. That doesn't even matter long-term, right? Because Tyrod Taylor's not going to be a long-term option. So that whole discussion never mattered. When the real discussion should have been, Jones is injured again. This is every single year except for the outlier contract year. He's been injured. And that's not he's doing anything on purpose or wrong, but it's still reality that he's missing football games for this team. And if you're paying someone $47 million against the cap next year, you cannot miss football games. Eli Manning did not miss football games. It's one of the best things he offered, availability. At that position quarterback, that's a very, very important thing.
Especially when your go-to trait is your athletic ability, your ability to extend plays and kind of get out on the run. And you're going to take a lot of hits doing that. So it's just not great because we look at Daniel Jones, and the reason we get excited about Daniel Jones when we get excited about him is the way he gets out of the pocket and the way he picks up yards with his legs. And you're taking hits, bro. You have that injury history, unfortunately. HB Greg, thank you so much again. He says, Eli had poor personnel at times, but was demanded to perform. Why do some want Jones to get a pass? He got paid. To Dan's point, good isn't enough for SB.
I think that's fair. I think it's a fair criticism from you, HB Greg, and thank you for the donation. But look, you're right. People did demand better out of Eli despite him not having, and it does seem like, I think what happens is everybody just wants Jones to have a fair shake at some point, which is true. I want it too. Nick and I want it too. But at some point, you got to just be like, maybe this fair shake idea isn't happening, or maybe at some point you have to project within what you see and what can, because like, again, I come back to what you said at the end there, HB Greg, like it's crazy to me and I know, and I haven't brought this up anywhere else, so I'm just thinking about this one more time. It's crazy to me that you could watch tape of all these quarterbacks, Nick, and I know you haven't seen them all, but you've seen bits and pieces of everyone this year at some point. You've seen a few that have played the Giants. I know I watch a bunch for Beyond the Box, or I think you just watch some on your off time too, and broadcast as well. I don't think it just has to be exclusive to the All 22. And we can see from our own two eyes, Nick, that Kirk Cousins is playing this position better than like all but, like I said, 6 or 7 quarterbacks. That's how hard the position is to play. That's how important his processing is, his timing is, his ball placement is, his ability to stretch all the field and hit all angles, his poise in the pocket. And yet that still has not been a formula that works and wins a Super Bowl. Getting a Kirk Cousins and paying a Kirk Cousins did not work. It's over. It's probably not going to work. He tore his Achilles. The Vikings will move on from him. Maybe he can burst somewhere and make a playoff run at some point in his career. But it's not good enough. So when that's not good enough, I think that's where the scope of this whole thing comes into play for me. And it just brings me back to where I was on this like a few years ago as far as like the quarterback position goes.
Yeah, you need to have a great quarterback.
There's just non-negotiable, really.
It's non-negotiable. Milan Fan Club San Diego, thank you so much. Again, Giants need a system like the 49ers. Does DJ succeed under Shanahan, and does Purdy struggle with the Giants? And then he says, and Latu has Bosa boy potential.
Wow.
They gotta look at this kid from UCLA, this edge rusher, Latu.
There's the potential.
And yeah, I think the system that is run by Shanahan. Actually, Matt Sims brought it up on the podcast. If anybody wants to check that out, he just says the coaching staff there's so much continuity among everybody on that coaching staff. Everyone understands the goal. I think that's the case with the New York Giants right now. I just don't think they have the same play designs and the same type of offense at all. I think Kyle Shanahan, what he runs and with the personnel that they have, that wide zone system with blockers like George Kittle, who are also dynamic, and Deebo Samuel and Ayuk. It's a unique thing that they have over there. But Kyle Shannon's also just a wonderkind, man. The guy's been doing it now for a little while, but he's still just a young, brilliant offensive mind. And I'm not saying Daboll isn't, but what they have going on there is unique.
Yeah, agreed with you on that.
Sell, thank you so much for the donation. Said, wanted this win bad. Last year was fun, and I think we all thought we'd be better this year. I always thought a regression could happen, but not this bad. Tough decisions ahead. Still trust Dabes and Shane. I think we're in the same boat. Like I am trusting Dabes and Shane. Not just going to be, Sam Hinkie, trust the process type of trust, but you're evaluating. And like I said a little earlier, I think the aura around them has kind of faded. And now we're like, all right, now we need to start producing again. But regression to the mean, bro, we've gone below that. This is a complete 180, what we're seeing this year.
Yep.
And then we have Milan Fan Club San Diego again said, our defense is a positive. We shouldn't forget. And that is true. A lot of young players stepped up well. Obviously, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeaux, and then Cordell Flott we talked about. I thought Pinnock had a couple really nice plays other than that missed tackle, or that, I guess you could say it was a missed tackle. He just lowered his shoulder. And then McFadden had a couple nice plays in the box. He also had a couple missed tackles, though, as well. And then we have David Goodman again. Thank you, David. Tired of excuses for Jones. He's the guy consistently falling for trap coverages because he can't process or use the entire field. Yeah, David, he definitely doesn't use the entire field, not nearly enough. And he has shown a penchant to throw into the trap coverage to the field side, which has been a problem. I'm hoping that he can kick that bad habit.
Yeah. Look, I said my piece on this. We need to see improvement out of him. When he returns to the field this year with Andrew Thomas, Jones has to start stretching the field vertically. He has to start throwing the football I want to start to see 250 a game, because I don't need to hear the excuses. I think if you get Andrew Thomas back, John Michael Schmidt's back, Justin Pugh's helped this offensive line. Honestly, Tyree Phillips might be their best bet at tackle, but even Evan Neal has improved a little bit. And then you still have Hyatt. You still have Slayton, who I think creates separation. Who knows what's going to happen with Waller? We didn't even touch on that. Waller,
yeah, man,
injuring the hamstring early in this game and then ruled out immediately. Great. That's going to be great. I'm sure this one was going to be a freaking multi-week absence for this guy. I can only imagine. But I just need to see him start to consistently move the ball through the air, because it just can't be. We can't be going to year 6 and we're still not an offense that uses the field side, and an offense that stretches the field at all. And it's every game with 135 to 170 passing yards. It just can't continue like this.
Again, in the most successful season that we've had in a decade, the Giants were still last in explosive plays on offense. So we have to always remember that. I know we say it a lot on this podcast, but it's important.
It's important.
Oh, Ronald Gagne, again, thank you so much. He says, Jones will never get a fair shake. He's toast. His growth has been stunted. He could have been a top 5 guy, but we crippled him. Now he's a mid-tier guy with flashes of brilliance and putrid badness. I don't know if he ever had that top 5. When I evaluated him at Duke, I did not see that personally, Ronald, but I do appreciate the comment and your opinion.
Yeah, agreed with Nick. I don't think there was ever top 5 potential for him. Doesn't have top 5 arm in the NFL. The ball placement is not great. The timing, the passing game is not great, but none of that is all superseded by just he never was a processor. He never had natural post-snap processing in his Duke tape at all, and it's shown in the NFL. So maybe he could have been top 15 if we didn't screw him up, but don't think I was at top 5 was even remotely possible for a player with this kind of arm talent and bad processing.
Say this, though. He is a tough SOB.
He's a tough guy. Yeah, and he runs into contact, and he takes a shit ton of hits, and he's been injured every season, but the last one.
Dan, anything else before we get out of here, man? This was just another one of those just holy crap.
Yeah.
I can't believe we found a way to lose this football games type of games.
It was very Joe Judge-esque, and it's just bad. It's just this team's 2-6, most likely out of the playoffs a year after they made the playoffs, won a playoff game, and then built everything this offseason around the quarterback. It's not good. It's just not good. But
no, it's not.
But I don't know, man. I just think one day we might get lucky enough to commentate over a consistently good team with a consistently good pass game. I can't wait for that day, Nick, because it's just tough. This is going to be shit film to watch. We know that, but we're going to do it. And hopefully we can find some takeaways for you guys from the running game. And obviously defense will be fun. We'll have that. Yeah. We have that at least, Nick. We at least have that. But back to the Joe Judge style offensive game plans. It's a sad state of affairs.
Oh, we got one more from Ronald.
All
right. Well, I don't think anything past top 3 is special, to be fair. I rate Cousins 5th to 7th-ish, and I think he could have been better than him. Okay.
That's fair. I don't know if he could, in my mind, could have ever been better than Cousins. And I think you agree with that, Nick, from what you've seen on tape. Cousins, but we also just view Cousins a lot differently than the consensus, just because, again, like I said, like there's just quarterback play is so bad across the NFL that like when you have somebody who's consistently stretching the field like Cousins can and just great ball placement, timing in the passing, these things are so hard to find anywhere. Like even Will Levis today, I know you mentioned him earlier, Nick. We'll see if that continues with Levis. I'm curious to see if that can continue.
Yeah, probably not. I'll say this though, some of the touchdown passes had beautiful touch on them.
They did. And he's not. He had some good. The throws were good today, but we'll see if this can continue with Will Levis. I'm not holding my breath.
I think you're upset though, because I know you have Malik Willis in Dynasty. I don't think this is a good look for him.
Which Dynasty? Which one of ours is that?
I think it's so the first one that we're in because I cut him. I had
to
cut him. And the one that you're tanking.
I had such a good luck today. Ian, I'm tanking in a league, Dynasty league that Nick and I are in, and our friend Ian is 0-12, and I was 1-11. And obviously, I need to get that first pick so I can get Caleb Williams to super flex. So quarterbacks are worth everything. And he won today by mistake, Ian, because he had Will Levis, and he had who was the guy who went off for a million touchdowns? The skill player had like 4 touchdowns today.
Well, DeAndre Hopkins had 3.
No, it wasn't Hopkins. Damn it, I'm not going to remember. It was a running back, a stupid running back. I think this is bad radio, but. Either way, he got the win today, and now I have a chance to get Caleb Williams again, so I'm super happy about that.
That's good for you, man. I'm happy for you.
Yeah. All right, we need some kind of joy today. All right, listen, this is a depressing podcast. I apologize for that. Look, we're going to have to do our best to find some positives, and you guys are too. But thank you so much for Gus Edwards. That's who it was. He had Gus Edwards on his roster for some reason. Good call there, Big Dog Saints. So that crushed him. But yeah, we're going to do our best to find positives. The film's coming this week, and we'll have more stuff as well on the way. We'll probably do some kind of state of the union mailbag at some point too, because we're now at that point where we have to start thinking about this team in the future.
No, absolutely. So we should do that soon, and hopefully you guys will join us if we do.
Yep. Have a great night. See you guys soon.